Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to learn about Ielts Speaking Test Part 1. The topic of our lesson is sport events. Sport events. In this lesson, we're going to look at some questions and some sample answers. I'm also going to give you some tips to help you score a very high band in your Ielts speaking test. Now, before we begin the lesson, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share the video with anybody else who may benefit from it, and also subscribe to the channel for more useful content. Now, let's get into our lesson. Let's begin by looking at question 1. Are you sporty? Do you do any sports? Now, in this question, the examiner wants to know whether you are the sporty type of person. Do you do any sports at all? Now, to answer that question, you can say, let's look at 1A. Quite frankly, I'm not sporty at all, although I try to do some stretching exercises now and then. Quite frankly, I'm not sporty at all, although I try to do some stretching exercises now and then. Now, you can also answer that question by saying 1B. Yes, I really do enjoy playing all kinds of sports, particularly sports that involve running, such as football. Yes, I really do enjoy playing all kinds of sports, particularly sports that have or that involve running, such as football. So, in sample answer 1A, I made the examiner understand that quite frankly, I'm not sporty at all. Okay, I'm not a sporty person, although I try to do some stretching exercises now and then. Now, when you begin your answer with quite frankly, you will definitely score a higher band because that gives the examiner the impression that you really understand the nuances of the English language. Are you sporty? Now, quite frankly, I'm not sporty at all, although I try to do some stretching exercises now and then. Or you could say when the examiner asks, do you do any sports? Yes, I really do enjoy playing all kinds of sports, particularly sports that involve running, such as football. Now, let's move on to question 2. What is your most favorite sport and why? What is your most favorite sport and why? In this question, the examiner wants you to identify the sport that you like the most, and then you give a reason as to why you like it. Now, you can answer that question by saying, sample answer 2. The sport which I like the most is swimming because I get to exercise my entire body and improve my mobility. The sport which I like the most is swimming because I get to exercise my entire body and improve my mobility. So in that answer, I identified the sport that I like the most, and that is swimming. And then I gave a reason as to why I like it. And that is because I get to exercise my entire body. Entire means whole body. And also because it gives me the chance to improve my mobility. Your mobility is the ability to move your limbs, your hands, your legs, to walk without much of a problem. So mobility means movement. Now, let's move on to question 3. Why do people do sports? Why do people do sports? In that question, the examiner wants you to give him or her some reasons as to why people do sports. Now you can answer that question by saying, well, people do sports mainly to stay fit and healthy, both physically and mentally. Others engage in sports hoping to lose some weight or to challenge themselves. Well, people do sports mainly to stay fit and healthy, both physically and mentally. Others engage in sports hoping to lose some weight or to challenge themselves. So in that answer, I have given the examiner a number of reasons as to why people do sports. Well, a very good way of beginning your answer. Well, just like quite frankly. Remember, this is spoken English. Well, people do sports mainly to stay fit, okay? So because they want to stay fit, they want to stay physically fit and healthy, both physically and mentally. Mental has to do with your mind, and physically has to do with your body. So people do sports to keep their minds and their bodies fit and healthy. Others engage in sports. Now, engage simply means they do, okay? Others engage in sports hoping to lose some weight. Maybe if they are obese, they are overweight, they want to lose a few kilos, they think they are fat, they do sports. And then there are those who do sports to challenge themselves. When you want to challenge yourself, it means that you want to do something that makes you feel like you have achieved something. So in that answer, I have given the examiner a number of reasons as to why people do sports. Let's move on to question 4. Do you enjoy watching sports on television? Do you enjoy watching sports on television? The examiner simply wants to know whether you like watching sports on television. Now, you can answer that question by saying, absolutely. Every Saturday evening, I sit with my family to watch our favorite football team playing premiership tournaments and leagues. I do also enjoy watching cycling and Formula One. Absolutely. Every Saturday evening, I sit with my family to watch our favorite football team playing premiership tournaments and leagues. I do also enjoy watching cycling and Formula One. So in that answer, I have confirmed to the examiner that I really enjoy watching sports, and I use the word absolutely. And then I explained when I do it every Saturday evening. With who? I sit with my family to watch our favorite football team playing premiership tournaments and leagues. I also identified another sport that I enjoy watching on television, and that is cycling. That is people using bicycles to cycle, and Formula One. Now let's move on to the next question, and that is question 5. Do you admire any sportsmen or women? Do you admire any sportsmen or women? So in this question, the examiner wants to know whether there are some men or women who play sports that you really admire, that you really like. Now you can answer this question by saying, I really do admire Lewis Hamilton, who is the current Formula One champion race driver. He is exceptionally talented. I really do admire Lewis Hamilton, who is the current Formula One champion race driver. He is exceptionally talented. So in that answer, I have identified a sportsman that I really admire, and that is Lewis Hamilton. He is the current Formula One champion race driver. And the reason I admire him is because he is exceptionally talented. Exceptionally means unique, okay? very special. He is exceptionally talented. Now let's move on to question 6. What qualities do you need to succeed in sports? What qualities do you need to succeed in sports? Now, in that question, the examiner wants you to identify some characteristics of a good sportsman or sportswoman. What characteristics, what qualities should you have to succeed in sports? Now, you can answer that question by saying, well, to succeed in sports, I think that one ought to be self-motivated, hardworking, and extremely dedicated. Being always focused and self-disciplined is equally paramount. Well, to succeed in sports, I think that one ought to be self-motivated, hardworking, and extremely dedicated. Being always focused and self-disciplined is equally paramount. So in that answer, I identified the qualities that I think are very important for you to succeed in sports. And that is self-motivation. So you should have motivation coming from you, not from your coach. You should have your own motivation, not from your parents. You should be the one who wants to do it. Self-motivated. Hardworking is someone who works really hard. As a sportsman, you should work really hard if you want to succeed. Also, extremely dedicated. To be dedicated is to be devoted to something. When you're devoted to something, it means that you're very committed to it. Also, being focused. You don't lose your focus. You remain determined. You don't go for training today and then tomorrow you don't, and then the next time you go and then you don't. No, you remain focused. You go for training every single day, for example. And also that you should be self-disciplined. So in that answer, I have identified several qualities: self-motivated, hardworking, dedicated, focused, self-disciplined. All those are adjectives that we use to describe a good sportsman or sportswoman. Now let's move on to question 7. Does participating in sports build your character? Does participating in sports build your character? In that question, the examiner wants your opinion. Do you think if you do sports, it's going to help to develop your character? Now, you can answer that question by saying, absolutely. Participation in sports can make you more self-confident, self-disciplined, and determined to succeed in life. Absolutely. Participation in sports can make you more self-confident, self-disciplined, and determined to succeed in life. So in that answer, I have given the examiner my opinion. I think that participation in sports is very important in building your character because it's going to make you more self-confident, self-disciplined, and determined to succeed in life. So there you go. That's how you can answer these questions if you get them during your Ielts speaking test. This brings me to the second section of this lesson where I'm going to give you some tips to help you score a very high band during your test. Tip number 1, make sure you understand the question. Listen really carefully to the examiner. Listen to the verb that the examiner is using in the question. Are you sporty? Do you do any sports? Okay. What is your most favorite sport? So listen very carefully and make sure you understand the question. Tip number 2, For each of the questions that the examiner is going to ask you, give him or her 2 or 3 points. Don't simply say yes or no. Are you sporty? Yes. Do you do any sports? No. Now, that is not good. Make sure that for each of the questions that the examiner asks you, you give him or her 2 to 3 points. Tip number 3. Join your tips or join your points or your ideas for each question. Join them using linking words. Join them using linking words. I have used linking words in all my sample answers. For example, in sample answer 1A, I used the linking word although. I also used and. Okay? So use linking words to join your ideas together. In sample answer 2, I used because and I also used and. Okay? So use linking words to join your ideas together. Tip number 4. Make sure you use the correct vocabulary for the topic that the examiner is talking to you about. In this lesson, we are talking about sport events. So you need to use the correct vocabulary for this topic. Now, you don't have to worry because in my sample answers, you have the vocabulary to be able to do that. The next tip that I'm going to give you is that if you're aiming for a band 8 and a band 9, then you have to use compound and complex sentences in your answers. A compound sentence has 2 verbs. A complex sentence, however, has 3 or more verbs. And that means that for you to construct a compound sentence, you have to use 1 linking word. However, to construct a complex sentence, you have to use 2 or more linking words. The next tip that I'm going to give you is that try to use intonation when you're speaking. Intonation simply means the words that you choose, how you raise and lower your voice, okay? For example, in these sample answers, I begin with phrases such as, quite frankly. Now, remember that phrase. When you're giving your opinion about something, you can begin your answer with, quite frankly, I'm not sporty at all. Or you can use, well, like in sample answer 3, why do people do sports? Well, people do sports, okay? Another word that you could use that helps with your intonation is absolutely. Look at sample answer 4. The question is, do you enjoy watching sports on television? Absolutely. And also in question 7, does participating in sports build your character? Absolutely. So use intonation, raise and lower your voice. You do it in your mother tongue. So do it when you're speaking English during your Ielts speaking test. And finally, the tip that I'm going to give you is the most important of them all. Make sure that you speak good grammar. Make sure that your tenses are correct. Make sure that you use good subject-verb agreement. Make sure your prepositions are correct. Make sure you are using your linking words correctly. Now, that is extremely important because actually that is what determines which band you're going to get, your grammar. So make sure that you listen very carefully to the question that the examiner is asking. Listen to the verb that he or she is using in the question, because that is going to help you to know which verb to use in your sample, in your answer. And most of the times, you just use the same verb. Now, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, share the video and help somebody else the same way I have helped you. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn your notification bell on so that you know when I upload a new video, because you don't want to miss out. Now, thank you very much, everyone, and I shall see you in our next video. Bye-bye.